like to thank you all of you for joining us for an info session on Hello everyone, a very good evening to all of you. This is Madhumata here, your host for the evening. Firstly, I would like to say thank you for all for joining into the session. And it's about breaking into an analytics and data science careers with our eminent guests, Mr. Amit Sharma and Mr. Sai Satish Vedam. You will be able to interact with Mr. Sai Satish and Mr. Amit, and they'll be giving us some actionable insights on the subject. I request you all to actively participate and make the best use of this 1 hour session. Please feel free, comfortable, and ask your questions directly to our speakers. Now, before we start with today's session, allow me to give you a quick introduction about the Institute. The Institute of Product Leadership is Asia's first business school. The Institute of Product Leadership is Asia's first business school, providing accredited degree programs, certification courses in product management, product leadership, data science, and design. The Institute has partnered with 3 universities in India, the University of Houston in the United States. Founded in 2012, the Institute has Yes. So the Institute of Product Leadership is Asia's first business school, providing accredited degree programs and certification courses in product management, product leadership, data science, and design. The university has partnered with 3 universities in India, the University of Houston, the United States. Founded in 2012, the Institute has built and developed a community of over 2,000 successful alumni leading the product, data, and design team across the world. We are also knowledge partners with 200 organizations worldwide. Being in the space of the executive education, we got a lot of questions on mid-career transition. You may have questions like that as well. Is the data science career the right choice for me? How do I feel that skill gaps to take data science role, certification or skill? And what more important is to crack into data science role. Or any specific questions that you may have here, any specific questions you can just ask. You are more than willing to answer all your queries. We'll try to cover as many as in today's session. But if you prefer a more elaborative one-to-one discussion with our faculty, please scan the QR code for a 30-session expert panel. So if you have a burning career question, guys, I'll give you a moment here to scan the QR code. You'll find the URL in the chat box. Without further ado, allow me to welcome our eminent guest of tonight, that's Professor Sai Satish Vedam. Professor Sai Satish was most recently the Senior Director of Product Management at Oracle. He is also an executive coach, senior faculty at the Institute of Product Leadership. A warm welcome to you, Professor Sai Satish. We are absolutely thrilled to have you here with us tonight. I would like to request Professor Sai Satish to kindly take the session forward.
Well, thank you, Madhumita. Good evening, all of you. I know I just was told that there is an IPL match that is happening, the other IPL. So hopefully we'll try to make this as interactive, as useful, as fun as possible here. I know it's a very important topic to several of you. I also see many of you joining through the LinkedIn live stream. So apparently this session is streamed live on multiple platforms. Now, before we jump into it, I'd like to, it gives me a great pleasure to welcome Amit Sharma. And Amit, if you are there, if you can turn on your camera and microphone and say a quick hello so that we know.
Hi, Sai Satish, excited to be on this platform.
Great to have you again, Amit.
Thank you.
I hope you're doing well.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Super. And again, a warm welcome to all the participants joining this session now. Now, here is how we're going to go through this session, Amit. Well, let me quickly introduce you, and let's understand a little bit about our audience today here, who's joining, and why they're joining, missing the exciting IPL match. Well, I don't know if it's really exciting. It's between KKR and Punjab 11, so I'm not really sure if that is even more any exciting, but whatever. I think so. Welcome, Amit. For those of you who don't know Amit, Amit is essentially a director of data science with the Global Accelerator leadership team at Ericsson, right? So, and Amit brings more than 2 decades of experience in product development and technology management. Amit and his team is responsible for building data-driven solutions that uses AI and ML. Before this, Amit, you were at ADP leading their AI and ML capabilities into the
Right.
HR and talent domain. I'm sure it's quite a switch from that domain into the telecom domain. Amit is also extremely passionate about design, architecture, data, and loves to be hands-on with it. Now, that brings me, Amit, are you still doing the watch faces that you used to do, the clock faces?
Oh yeah, I just uploaded an updated version of the watch face that I uploaded some time back with customizable bands. I keep doing that.
That is awesome. Because, I remember seeing that some time ago, and you do this for Fitbit watches, right?
That's right, Fitbit.
Yeah. I think, I remember seeing some of those, and the way that you bring those information. Of course, now these smartwatches collect so much information,
Yes.
but what is the best way to visualize and present that, so that, I get all the information at a quick glance when you see that watch. I'm glad that you're still continuing to do that.
Love it.
Folks, in case any of you are Fitbit users, go ahead and download those watch faces that Amit has created. They are really awesome. With that, Amit, let's dive in to understand our audience a little bit, a couple of polls that we would launch and try and understand where the audience is coming from, right? So let's see, what is the average experience that many of the audience have here. The question for those of you on other live streams is, you have this many years of work experience, and the options are less than 5 years, 5 to 10 years, and 10 plus years, right? So take a moment, folks joining, especially on Zoom, all it takes is about a few seconds to let us know. And the reason why this is important is both the speaker and also the kind of questions that we would want to take. We can make this specifically tailored to the audience that we have, right? Otherwise, these are very vast topics, and we can go on, and I'm sure Amit loves to talk about these areas for a couple of hours. But just to make sure that all of you who are joining on a Friday evening, will benefit from that. Okay, super. So I see about 56% of them are less than 5 years, about 22 equally divided between 5 to 10 and 10 plus years. I only see about 10 of the 14 participants, so appreciate if others also just take a quick poll. Super. So let's end that poll and show the quick result, and bring up the next one, if you will. Okay, I hope everybody can see that, the result of that poll. So can we move to the next one, please? Super. So you are currently in the following role. That's the poll question: data analyst, business analyst, software engineer, project manager, product manager, functional leader. Now, I know titles are very creative in India, but whatever comes closest to the responsibilities of this role, please choose that. It's a pretty interesting topic, and I'm sure a lot of people are inquisitive about, more than inquisitive, I would say, to see how do I shift my career now from what I'm doing into something that involves data science, data analytics, and ML and AI, right? Super. Okay, looks like majority of the folks who are joining are software engineers, about 56% of them. And I'm waiting for few more votes to come in before we jump in. So there are no project managers and no product managers. Now that's an interesting mix that we have. Often we have quite a few of product managers and project managers, which also I think is a bit telling about the topic that people want to know, right? So more from a breaking into the career roles is where the aspirations may lie. Super. So let's end this poll. And the final one, we can bring up the final one as well. Again, strongly encourage folks who are joining to tell us from your perspective. And I'm hoping that we will have some very specific questions from you. The final poll is, you are interested in data science for what reason, right? Now, many of us have different reasons and motivations to do that. I would expect naturally transition to data science careers is going to be the dominant one here. But just in case, if you're wondering what it takes to get into that role, just to understand, acquire knowledge is one option, start career in data science, transition into data science, and but use data effectively in my current job, right? So those are also some good options there. Couple of more votes. Again, go ahead, folks, and tell us. Okay, so looks like we have about 45% want to transition into data science career, Amit. And about 33% start career in data science. I'm assuming that these are early stage professionals who are excited about the opportunities that data science analytics brings in and are interested in knowing that. Great. Thank you, all of you. So Amit, over to you. Hopefully you'll take us through an exciting journey, your journey, and also more importantly, what it takes for people to break into these careers, both from a mindsets perspective, skill sets perspective, and also what does even data science solve? This is a big mystery for a lot of people, right? I'm sure you have built some amazing products that are interspersed and also use AI and ML, right? So with that, I'll hand over it to you. I'll be monitoring the questions. So folks, don't hesitate, post your question in the chat box, or if you are joining on LinkedIn, post it on the LinkedIn thread. And also we'll have a Q&A at the end. If you really want to articulate your question, don't hesitate, raise your hand, your microphone will be unmuted, and then you can go ahead and do it. So this is going to be as much as a learning for me as well, along with all of you. So with that, Amit, to you.
Thank you, Sai Satish. This is an awesome platform, and thanks for the introduction, as well as this poll helps me tremendously just to get a sense of what my audience is looking like today. So without much ado, let's get started, guys. And like Satish said, feel free to chat and type in your questions in the chat. Sai Satish, please do let me know if there is a question which is pertinent to be taken up at that time. I'm totally okay with the free flow format, right?
Okay, we'll do that.
Yeah. I also noted that many of us, I was expecting a lot of product managers, but seems like we have a little bit of a interesting stage here. But even at that, I can tell you totally, something I'm so happy to see many of you want to start a career in data science. Many want to transition to it. Both kind of mean the same. But the part which intrigued me most was none of you said, I want to use it in my current job. And you will see why I'm alluding to that, because that will be one of my slides about, the question is, why can't you use it in your current job? But we'll come to that when we come to it.
I'm sure when you highlight how that is possible and why they should be doing, a lot more people will agree with that.
Exactly. And it beats me that, that's actually one of my most recommended ways to get started with data science. So let me share my screen here. And the moment you are able to see, let me know, share.
Yep.
The screen is visible, right, Sai Satish?
Yes, yes.
All right. So without much ado, I'm leading currently AI/ML capability in Ericsson with a team of about 20, give or take, people, and working on many problems. And since Sai Satish told us that what kind of problems do we solve, I will try and go on with a few of the examples. But just to give you a background, Ericsson is one of the leading providers of telecom infrastructure and services to many of the well-known companies. When you think of Airtel, Vodafone, or even T-Mo and AT&T, they are the service providers, communication service providers. But we are the ones who provide the technology and service to those providers, a B2B in sense, business to business, and help them with setting up networks, optimize it, manage it, digital services, billing, charging, and of course on emerging business such as IoT and stuff, right? So that is about my company currently. And prior to this, I have obviously led AI and ML in my previous company called ADP, Automatic Data Processing, in the capacity of a DS leader. Again, I will cover some use cases that we have taken handled in my current and past experience, which should give you a sense of what is the problems we solve. All right, just to give you some little more background, like why suddenly AI is everywhere, but what does it mean in telecom, right? Why are we talking about telecom, AI much more than ever? And the answer to it is a 140-year-old organization, and possibly the one which also is a history of telecom itself. The backdrop shows up some people setting up copper cables for the first ever communication. And from there to being able to cover 78% of the world population through mobility solutions. We have about 19 billion devices in 2018 itself connected. Remember, IoT, Internet of Things. These are devices connected to the internet. And even when we are connecting with each other over, over any solution that we might be on, Wi-Fi or like a radio, all of these are the kind of solutions my company currently provides. And it feels very proud to be a part of solution providers which enable in the current times of pandemic, right? But more importantly, also note the number of devices increasing, the number of, we are now talking about 5G technologies. Think about all the problems that 5G and this amount of data bring to the table. The challenge of automating, challenge of configuring it, the challenge of optimizing it, it is not handleable by humans anymore. And which is why we need AI and ML. So we'll cover that in a little more detail in a moment. And some of the areas that we cover at a high level are automating the network service management. Is a cell tower going down, or is a cell tower overloaded so that the traffic can be diverted to another cell tower? This is one of the classic cases. Even within a cell tower, is it operating at an energy footprint, meaning it consumes energy, right? When you see a cell tower, you may think that it's just there doing its job, which it is, but the fact is it is trying to optimize energy and its footprint, network footprint. You can't be burning all the energy all the time, because that means you increase your carbon footprint, you increase the costs, and you also increase the maintenance costs on the service items, right? So all of that has to be optimized. And so much data can only be handled through AI and ML to manage even better. So our focus is to make it zero touch automation. Same goes for 5G. Many of you are hearing 5G so many times. And the fact is 5G is the new wave of technology, right, in telecom. And it's we have signed about 150 clients worldwide, and it is taking the world by storm. Very soon in India, we'll also have 5G solutions. Again, the point I'm trying to make is the moment you go into a new technology, the amount of data that you might be dealing with multiplies just exponentially. And the moment the data multiplies, to be able to handle that kind of a traffic manually becomes even more difficult. With 5G, the challenge is the traffic antennas. The antennas need to be placed closely together so that the signal can be transmitted in a more optimized fashion, so as to provide the low latency. AI is necessary to do that. And there are many other areas. I won't go into all of them, but let me quickly take you to a few very interesting use cases of visual intelligence. Computer vision, like we call them. Some of you who are aware with computer vision might have done some work in OpenCV. You would know that when we build these radio, units, we have to weatherproof the connections. If you don't weatherproof it, then what happens when you get a problem like a rain or a snow? The connections start to deteriorate, and they even start, malfunctioning. To be able to do it manually means someone has to actually climb the tower and understand what the problem is and fix it. Now we have drones which fly up there and identify if the weatherproofing has been done correctly or not. And the human intervention is only required when the actual problem is identified, that there's a loose clamshell or a rubber ducting, and that needs to be fixed. Similarly, sector identification, another visual intelligence. The reason I'm focusing on visual intelligence is because I'll cover some classic AI ML problems in the HR industry. So how to know which cable is carrying what signal frequency and what its coding is, that color coding is based on, you can easily do it with computer vision today. Is the cable too bent? Because if the cable is too bent, you may want to fix that. Otherwise, the bent rate increases stress and ultimately leads to a breakage or a failure. So in this case, you can see augmented reality in action along with AI and ML. You can see that the green wires are basically an overlay, which is done by computer vision to say that these cables are fine, but the last one, the leftmost one, has a red part to it, which means it is kind of bent too sharply and it can be a problem. And finally, inventory management, like what are the current equipments on my cell tower and what more can be accommodated, which model is there, so that I can put a non-interfering antenna next to it. Stuff like that can be done using computer vision and AI ML. So these are some of the telco use cases I talked about in the visual computer vision realm. Let me talk about a few in HR, and this I did in my previous company in through 2015 through 19. So you may see one of the most interesting problems that I personally like also to talk about is the turnover probability. It is the likelihood of an employee to leave the company. How likely is an employee to leave the company? This is the burning problem for many, and in the current market scenario, even more so. Now, identifying who are at risk requires a lot of data to work with, because you do not know what the factors could be. We do not know all the factors, but we know quite a few factors which can possibly give us a handle to what is the risk of someone leaving the company. And in ADP, when we did this, we were actually able to get the solution problem solved to a very good extent, to an extent which is usable. Now, if you see the way I have articulated this slide, first you need to identify what the problem we are solving. Then you need to articulate it, like what is the saving, what is my ROI going to be? Because if I lose a person, so the cost of backfilling is 2 times the annual salary of the employee. I mean, that's a huge cost. So I would rather retain or try to retain a person before they leave, because once they leave, the cost is so huge, not to mention the chances of decline and stuff, right? So all of that can be handled by having a predictive capability that this person is at a risk of leaving. And we also establish a success criteria. So guys, again, when you get into data science, you will realize that it is not about just doing some cool, it is about doing a lot of cool experiments, but more importantly, when you apply it to a business problem, you are looking at what is the problem am I solving, what is the impact I'm going to make, and what is the success criteria. This is product management 101. And I understand that the audience doesn't have a lot of product managers in it, but I don't think it takes a lot of effort to understand what this means, right? If you're not solving the right problem, you may do a lot of data science, but to no impact. No one is willing to buy that, right? So this is one example. Another problem we solved was HR candidate relevancy. So basically here, what we did was, the problem was, can we help companies find the best candidate matches for a given job? So you have a job description, you have a candidate profile, a resume. Can we match the two and kind of help them sort in a way that the most close matches can be looked at first? Otherwise, the HR has to go through all of them. Manager has to go through all the profiles. And again, here, the idea was to articulate the business problem. A lot of time, it depends on company to company, but they spend several hours going through each resume and shortlisting. And the success criteria was clearly defined as reduce time to hire by 30%. So it was very clearly articulated and specified. So you see some of the interesting HR area, talent area problems that we looked at and solved. So let me now get into one of the areas which I'm sure you must be looking at, thinking about what to do with. So I have on the left a few of the roles that most of the people might be if they are not in data science already, right? There are these product managers, business analysts, engineering managers, developers. And when I say developers, I'm talking about development, testers, machine learning, not machine learning, DevOps guys, everyone. So these are the profiles of people, most of you might be belonging to one of these. And you want to take on some of these, data scientist, data engineer, data analyst, or ML ops role. I'll talk about what these mean in a moment. But you see, what do you see? Is it a one-to-one or many-to-many mapping? Clearly, you can see it's a many-to-many, meaning more often than not, it is not decided as to what you are to be able to become what you want to be. But that said, there are some recommended career paths. For example, if you're not into programming or coding, and you don't want to take that on as your long-term goal, you may be okay looking at data analyst or a ML, for example, a data. In fact, data analyst may be the right role for you. But if you're into coding and you want to build models and you want to actually see data in action, then data scientist could be the role for you. If you are a developer and you also want to build systems and pipelines and solutions, DevOps could be, ML ops could be the role. or data engineering could be the role. So there are many mappings, but still there are some recommended paths. And when we go through each of the paths that we look at, we will get to know which one could be the right one for you. Again, Sai Satish said, my own journey has been, I was not obviously not into data science since day one. With 22 years of career experience, I started off as a developer and a tech lead, a manager, and then I took to architecture. I was very passionate about leading some of that architecture and design work. And then finally, I got into data science about 9 to 10 years back. And since then, I have not looked back. But the fact is, it does not have to be something now to become something later. It's about propensity of you, your propensity, your interest, your willingness to challenge yourself to take on any of these, right? So let us go further down here. Now, I have broken down the whole data science process into a couple of steps. And I have also highlighted what are the skills required and who are the people who are likely to play that role. Take it with I would say, some context that I'm putting, running a broad stroke here. It may not answer all your questions, but it should give you a fair idea of where you think you can be making an impact. And we'll spend some time about the skills and what you should be doing to get into the career group. So knowing the big picture, what problem are we solving? What are the business goals? ROI, I talked about that. Who will be using it? Personas, who will be using it? And where is it going to be hosted? Is it on the cloud, on-prem, in a data center? How is it going to be supported? And what are the licenses? What is the cost? How will I charge them? How will I bill them? And when it's supposed to be delivered? So these are the questions a typical product manager asks. So which is why both the data analysts and product managers will work through most of these problems, like knowing the big picture. Are we going after the right problem? Typically, a data analyst also is looking at opportunities such as, we have had sales dropping quarter on quarter for the last 3 years in these locations. Can we try and build a model which will help us boost the sales there? I think that's the kind of question a data analyst will help ask, and a product manager will say, yes, this is the question to ask. And that's how it will start. Second is formulating the DS problem. This is where a data scientist also kicks in, apart from the business analyst and the product manager. This is where the data scientist also kicks in, and they are looking at, is it a data science problem, or maybe it's an automation problem? Is it a predictive? Is it a classification? And if it's a recommender problem, am I recommending movies? Am I recommending a purchase on a retail thing? Or am I predicting a house price, the classic regression example? So all of these questions have to be understood to understand whether or not it's a data science problem in the first place or not. Is data available? How am I going to make data available? I cannot be working on building a model I don't have data for. Remember, big data and data science are only possible when there's data, right? And finally, setting up the business goals, mapping the business goals to the model accuracy metrics. Like, fine, you want to reduce your hiring time by 30%, but what does it mean for a classification model? I should be able to classify high matching candidates and low matching candidates with 30% accuracy, something like that. And again, the skills required are, you should have a basic understanding of data. Yes, I Satish. Do we have a question, Sai Satish? Okay, if not, I'll continue. Someone can confirm you're able to hear me still, right?
Yes, Amit, we can hear you.
All right. Okay. Yeah. Just making sure, because I thought there was a discussion or question. And thank you, Madhu. All right. So let's keep going here. The third part. Now, what did we do? We first identified an opportunity. Second, mapped it to a data science problem. And now we are planning and tracking. What does it mean? Planning and tracking is like, what are the steps we'll follow to get the job done? This is where your project manager, engineering manager, the reason I put engineering manager is because I didn't want to proliferate the kind of roles too much, but an engineering manager is also the delivery responsible guy, right? So he or she will plan the, this is the milestone, these are the resources, these are the stages, and based on that. But one thing I want you to note in the planning part is, you have to plan it in 2 stages. Any data science problem has to be planned in 2 stages. The first would be experimenting or testing the hypothesis. Remember, you do not know if the data will tell a story. So you got to first work with the data, do a proof of concept, and that is the experiment part. Once you have experimented, and you must experiment on real data, of course, because in data science, if you work on fake data, you will get results, garbage in, garbage out. That principle hasn't changed all that much in the several years of software engineering, right? It continues. So you have to experiment on real data and then plan to, once the experiment is successful, you need to do all the big data engineering and putting the model into production and all that. But first, you have to experiment on real data, plan to handle failed experiment. It should be a set expectation that, boss, I'm trying to predict turnover, but maybe I'll not be able to. Let us see. Maybe I'll not be able to meet your criteria. So you have to be able to ready to handle experiments, failed experiments. And finally, ensuring the data availability and of course, who's going to do what, the kind of accountability, and engaging the SME, subject matter expert. Remember, when you're doing a model building and doing all that, you need to have SME as a resource planned for. Otherwise, if the data scientist is not quite aware of the domain, you may be doing things in vain. Yeah. So a subject matter expert, it could be a product, it could be anyone, it could be a product manager also, the subject matter expert, but someone who knows business must be involved. And the skills are project, product management, and understanding the nature of data. Right? You're with me so far? So now we have planned, now we will do the model building. This is where the Einstein kind of a guy looking like a data scientist. Again, I have just put some fun personas there, but the point is, the person who's a data scientist is kind of at the middle of actually building the model. You know, this is where I have not brought in a data engineer. Please note that. Data engineer will come in when we actually want to put the whole pipeline together. I would expect a data scientist to know how to source some data and work with it as for an experiment. So this is a proof of concept stage, meaning I'm only going to establish a hypothesis, either accept or reject it. More often, data scientists want to reject a hypothesis. Those who are in data science will understand this. Collecting data and knowing how to sample. Remember, there may be exabytes of data out there. You are not going to work on all of them. So what you're going to do, you're going to sample. A data scientist knows what sample to take to be able to build a model which is reliable enough to represent the population, right? And you try various models, you do hyperparameter tuning, a glorified version of basically changing the parameters and checking how the model works. And finally, you validate the results with SME. Hey, I'm getting this kind of a result. Is it good, bad? Would you like me to try more? What kind of features I should use? Should I try some other features? Features are nothing but inputs to a data science model. Again, the skills here are basic data engineering. Of course, you should know data science pretty well, and business product knowledge. Either you have it or you augment with the SME. And this is where a data scientist is playing a central role. Started with product manager and a business analyst and a data analyst. And it is slowly going into, remember, some of these roles are being played by conventional software development guys such as product managers and dev managers, as well as they are being played by some of the data professionals such as data scientists and engineers. The reason is I'm telling this is because nowadays the line is blurring and everyone is in the business of data. Please note my point. You know, everyone's in the business of data. So let's keep going forward with this. Now that you've built the model, there have to be a few things you need to validate the model. You know, the data scientist has come to you and said that, hey, my model works and everything is good. But this is something I've recommended to the leaders of the team and the product managers who do this. They work with the data scientists and ensure that there is no overfit or underfit. And these are concepts, meaning the model is not too tightly tied to the data it has learned on. Because remember, it has learned on sample, or even if it has learned on all the data, the new data may be different. So it should be generalized model. It should not be having a lot of bias, which is underfit. Again, I'm using a few terms. When you get into the data science realm, you will understand them better. But the point I'm trying to make is model should be neither too tightly memorizing the data, nor too loose with the data. It should be somewhere optimal with respect to generalizing the patterns. And that's what the point is. And there are ways to do it, by the way. And creating the right validation split. How do you test for underfit and overfit? And then test on truly unseen data. By the way, if you know nothing about overfit, underfit, just try to test the model with unseen data, which the model has not learned on. And if it does well, you can rest somewhat assured that the model works. But if it fails miserably, you can say, hey, your model is overfit. This is one thing that many data scientists sometimes do it, but not in the most optimal way. Either they choose the wrong split or they are satisfied with whatever results they get. And last but not the least, it's an increasing ask lately to demand explainability, you know. So there is this ask for, can your model be explained? It tells me this employee is leaving, but can I find out why? It tells me this cell phone tower, is going to go bad on us. But can you tell me, what do I do? Why do you think it is going bad and what do I do to fix it? Explainability has become one of the most more demanding asks. And these are things I would expect a leader or a product manager to ask from a data scientist and a data science team. Again, the skills for this are basics of AI ML. and understanding the error metrics. I think this is fair enough. It's a very reasonable ask from if all of you, if you want to get into data professional, in some capacity, you should understand the error metrics. What is root mean square error? What is a, precision? What is a recall? What is the overall accuracy mean? What are the trade-offs? You should know this. I mean, you should not know it just because you have to be in data. You should know this because today, if you don't know those, very likely you're working on something to do with data science and you won't be able to understand what is being done. Just to keep it clear. Now, what have we come across? We have envisioned the problem. We have mapped it to a data science problem. We have planned the whole execution path. We have also in number 4, done the experiments. Number 5, we are validating the DS models. And finally, we build the data model pipeline, meaning the experiment is successful. Everything is looking great. Now we just want to put it into production. This is when my data engineer and ML ops guy will kick in. And they will be setting up the engineering, the data pipeline. How do I connect to the SQL database? How do I move SQL? How do I scoop the data from a SQL to a Hadoop or a HDFS or a MapR or a Elastic or a Cassandra, and creating integrations with the data sources, defining the model serving platform. What is model serving? Model serving, just like you serve your applications, you create REST services. Model serving could be similar thing, right? It is basically in the most naive form, it will be a REST service with accepting some endpoint URL at some endpoint URL, some parameters and giving you output, or taking a picture and telling cat, dog. I'm just simplifying it, but you should understand what serving means. And model lifecycle management. What works today may not work tomorrow. In data science, the problem is it's not a definitive model, right? It's a probabilistic model. So over a period of time, if your input data is changing, and we have had experience building such models, it worked beautifully for the first few months, and then the input data started drifting because they were changing the network patterns, which means they were installing more antennas, they were changing the antenna angles. So what happened was the nature of input data was itself changing, and that is what is meant by drift. So when you think of building a model in production, you have to think of drift detection, and you have to also think of drift correction, which is retraining the model with the new data so as to make it most correct. And that may not always work all the time, but at least you should have the right things, monitoring. Again, I might have missed it here, but having a monitoring in place so that you are able to figure out when the model is going bad. And how do you monitor? Just look at the error rates. What did it predict? What is the actual? Subtract them and keep squaring it, adding it over a window and checking whether it's good or not. Again, don't want to get into data science too much. This is about career. So what kind of skills do we need to focus on this? Data engineering, big data engineering, and DevOps, ML ops. I hope all of you know what DevOps is. Basically, it's become very, very popular lately, where people who are actually managing the development platform through to production and being able to help with deployment, the whole CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous delivery pipelines. The same concept applies in machine learning with a few more nuanced asks, such as model lifecycle management and model serving. And once you have put it out there, you are operationalizing the model. And this is basically the final stage where you are looking at setting the monitoring and analytics I talked about in the previous slide, licensing and pricing, like how are you going to bill them, charge them? How are you protecting your model? There are many model attacking, nowadays there are internet surface threats, but not just that. Specifically AI and ML model related threats. So you have to obfuscate your code to protect the IP, but also you have to put some watermark apparently on some models to prevent them from hacking into it. There are these adversary attacks. You have to think through all of that. But again, this is the last stage of the problem when you are actually taking it to production, running it with a client, and it's a good problem to have, which means you have made a totally successful business enterprise there, right? So these are enterprise concerns in many ways. How will you support and maintain it? Once again, the engineering manager, the ML ops guy are largely involved here. Not as much of course, product manager everywhere is there. So I wouldn't even want to take away the credit where it's due. Product manager have to be on top of the game all the time. So this is where I cover the steps involved. And quickly, I'll go through what are the careers and skills necessary. I talked about 3 main careers: analyst, engineer / ML ops. I'm bucketing them into a single place because of many similarity in the ways they will be looking at the problem, and the data scientist. See, those of you who are in the business analysis role, data analyst may be a good idea to take on. Data analysts should have some domain knowledge, business knowledge. They should be comfortable with loading data, mincing data. They should be okay with some basic statistical techniques. Again, there's no end to basic statistical techniques, but you should be okay with What is an average? What's a median? When to use what? What is 25th percentile? What is 70th percentile? Why should I look at 90th percentile? What does it mean to? I think sometimes I have been amazed by people when I ask them in interviews such questions. They're not able to answer, and it beats me. If you are not inherently passionate about some of these traits of data, how do you describe data? You'll find yourself struggling through these careers, right? So it's not about technical skills, it's about also your passion to want to know some of these basic data traits. And you don't have to be in data business to know these traits. Okay. And visualization, this is a very, very important area, and becoming more and more visible of late. So you could be just a visualization expert and start off as an analyst, so long you know how to work with the fundamentals of data. Okay, so then engineer. Engineer is kind of very clear. We are talking about plumbing the pipeline, sourcing data. So they should be aware of the big data platforms such as Hadoop and databases, good with scripting, Python programming. Again, Python is just one of the programming languages. It could be anyone, but Python is the most popular. This is where you also, if you're interested in how to deploy continuous integration, like you have Chef, Puppet, and Jenkins and whatnot, Gradle, basically being able to put the whole pipeline and the engineering around in place end to end. You can choose between being a very specific big data engineer, optimizing the Hive queries, or you could focus on deploying them. But I have just clubbed them here together. This is a hardcore programming focus, not much of data, but programming and data integration. And the most pursued one, by the way, is the data science one, not for any other reason than the fact that it is popular. But I can tell you, I have had bigger difficulty in hiring up some very, very smart engineers than data scientists, because it's in some way, if you are passionate about the subject, it's still okay. You can make for a data scientist, but a very smart big data engineer requires a lot of tech understanding as well as optimization, as well as engineering itself, right? So it's not easy. So they should know machine learning. Data scientists should know how to load the basics of database, statistical techniques. They should know programming. When I say they should be able to load a data into a Jupyter notebook, load and run some basically basic filter, impute, aggregate queries. They should be able to run some Spark jobs. And again, you could be using PySpark from your Python notebook. You might be filing up a query to maybe aggregate a terabyte of data, which may take half an hour, but at least you should know how to do it. And by the way, most of the constructs are very simple, but many people are just scary of trying it out. This is where familiarity with programming will help, not as much as knowing everything, learning how to find out. And some big data platforms and business knowledge is always helpful, else it needs to be coupled with a SME. So these are the careers and skills. How to make the career shift, the $1 million question, to which I will just say, everyone is in the business of data currently. I will be supremely surprised if you are in a job and in your team, you haven't talked about how to use data for some benefit. I'm not saying it as a black or white, but most, I would say, are in the business of some way using data to make the product smarter, to make their solution a little more sharper. So look around you and see where is that opportunity. The reason I'm bringing that up is, in a moment I'll show you, it is, I'll come to that, but because there is such a huge demand for data professionals, it's the best time to switch to a full-time data professional role. If you're passionate about it, again, don't take it because it's cool, take it because you want it. And if you find out more and more about it and know that it is the way to go, certainly it is for you. I didn't know 15 years back that I'll be in the business of data, but I haven't looked back since then, right? I'm loving it so much. And multiple career options are available, like you saw. Please get hands-on, start looking at data and hunt for opportunities within your current job, preferably. See, this is the point. This was the point number 4 in your survey poll. And I would have loved of some of you to say, I'm trying to look at some data and trying to see what I can do with that in my current job, because it is not easy for anyone to do a course and immediately get a transition, a job transition. The best thing that works for you is trying to get data in hand and trying it out, because you're in an established job. If you're already in one, you may get access to data in your current team or a adjacent team, and then try to get that opportunity internally first, because that may give you the leverage of saying that, yes, I have done some projects and this is what I got results, and show it in your interviews. And learn on Kaggle.com. It's an awesome platform to learn. They provide you shell, they provide you data, they provide you problems, partners, and you can just go on to learn at length at Kaggle.com, apart from all the courses and the material that you'll go through, of course. And one more important thing, many people do not do it as much. I would say, showcase your work on GitHub. GitHub is basically online repository, a free repository, if you want to remain public, and obviously you want to be public for people to be able to see. So put some public projects out there which you did in your own way, put some cool visualizations which bring out a different story. Even if you copy paste, give it your own spin in terms of what did you read from that. See, if you're just copying pasting, it's not gonna work. So you have to do something to add your value and your assessment. So even if it's a titanic problem on Kaggle you have taken on, what are you doing differently will distinguish you, and you'll be able to talk through it. Otherwise, see, forking a project is the simplest thing. Anyone can fork a repository. Forking is basically copying it again, right? Duplicating it. That doesn't help. You have to add your own value and learn how to showcase, because if you're not good with storytelling, very likely you're not going to cut it for a job, because the fact that it's data science itself is a storytelling job. Data analysis is a data storytelling. Visualization is storytelling job, right? So, and these are product management 101 again. And finally, network. Connect with as many people, connect on LinkedIn, keep an eye on the market. And whenever you get a chance to showcase your stuff on LinkedIn, let us say you did something on Kaggle and you want to show off, do not hesitate. Just know that you have done something of value, and there will be critics, but there will be many supporters as well. Networking is going to take you to the next level. So with that, guys, I'm gonna stop and take questions, unless Sai Satish, you think there is something I should cover in more details.
That was superb. I think the way that you walked us through, right from examples, very practical, very relatable examples, I must say. Now, before I start that, I just want to make a quick point here that based on the audience, what they told us, I know you emphasized more on the engineering aspects or for the engineering people. There are a couple of people in the audience who say they are also from the marketing domain. So let me try and address their query in a minute.
Sure.
But I think the way that you have walked us through, as I said, with some very relatable examples on HR and telecom, because I mean, I've spent more than a decade in the communication service provider space, of course, in a very different area, and fascinating examples, especially about wires and bent wires and those things. Really, really interesting. And of course, the HR one, most of the audience here, I'm sure, will appreciate. Now, folks, I'm sure, be aware that if your company is using HR, data analytics or data science for HR, they know predictively when you might leave. So, so be aware of that. What followed, I think the specific steps that you gave on how a problem, if you want to use data and data science, the 7 steps to take, right? Superb. Yeah. I think, and I'm assuming, and I'm sure many of these steps are repeatable and apply to any kind of problem that you're trying to solve.
Absolutely.
Right? So in any industry, in any domain, that you can apply that, right? Framing data science as a business problem, planning and tracking, hypothesis testing, validating the data science model, of building the model pipeline and operationalizing it. Now, I just don't want many people to get very intimidated and say, "Oh my God, I don't know what these are." There's a lot of jargons here that yes. that can intimidate. So let me quickly jump on to the question that Chaitashi has asked around marketing, right? So here is what I know, where especially data analytics is very, very popular and increasingly being used in the marketing space, right? And essentially, when we call as marketing analytics, we are talking about analyzing data towards 2 goals in the marketing space. One, it is calculating the return on investments on the marketing efforts, right? Now, when we say marketing efforts, there are a lot of activities that the marketing teams do, right? Market segmentation, customer analysis, pricing analysis, sales promotions or marketing promotions or campaigns that you run. And while most of us know descriptively what happened after the campaign is run and you spent your money and burnt your money, analytics is now being used specifically to tell us predictively, right? And data science rather. And that is a very, very powerful area where a lot of people are using this in the marketing domain. Also, another area is, of course, the improving the customer experience, right? So if you look at marketing, you have first-party data, second-party data, and third-party data, right? First party data is what you as an organization have. Second party data is collected through the application services. Third party is you get it from third party sources. And using all of that, getting a 360-degree view of your customer, of your user, and understanding how they feel about your product today and their emotions, their whether they will refer, whether they will continue, whether they will pay the next subscription fee that you want. These are all amazing areas in which I would say the marketing analytics is being used. Hopefully, Chaitashi, that give you a taste of what it is there. Coming from marketing professions or non-tech professions, you don't have to build all these data science models or everything, but you certainly need to be curious about data. And I think, I'll bring 3 very important mindsets that Amit brought up, right? And this is applicable across anyone. So again, go ahead, folks, if you have questions. I see several questions coming in both Zoom, a couple of them in Zoom and the LinkedIn part. There are questions around the data science and business analytics program in the international certification offered by IPL. I'm sure we will leave 5 minutes for that for Jayant to cover that part of it. But to quickly bring up what you have walked us through, Amit, there are 2 important things that you emphasize. Everyone who is interested in getting into data careers, right? Analytics and data science career. One, I'm paraphrasing what you said here, is on the mindsets part of it.
Yes.
And in that mindset, you brought up 3 things. One is understand how to frame the problem, right? Many people who come from a solution background, which is engineering development background, essentially come in with that mindset. But what is really important is, are you able to frame that problem?
Correct.
Right, number 1. Second mindset that you said is willingness to challenge yourself.
Yes.
Right. This sounds intimidating, and sometimes it could be more challenging. But are you willing to? Because when you have to transition a career, that is absolutely required. Right. No doubt about that. And the third one you brought up is passionate and curious to know about the data traits. Right. And I think this again. So these are mindsets. And of course, skill sets you identified in every stage. And one last point I want to highlight what you described. You talked about GitHub, right? And people should actually showcase their work, build projects, and get things, and don't hesitate to show off. Now, GitHub is definitely an important way for most of the engineers, but there are so many ways, even for non-technical people, right? If you're in business analysis and data analytics, I think the message that you want people to take away is, build skills, but building by learning, by doing, right? Applying it, and then demonstrate.
I'll just say this, guys. What I talked may have been a little more on the engineering side, but to Saishi's point, yes, absolutely. Marketing is a minefield for opportunities in data. And I could just do a 2-hour session just on usage behavior analytics. We did with Google and Google Analytics and Pendo and whatnots. It's an awesome subject, and I would say the same goes for any other areas. Do not get thinking that only programming is the way to go about doing it. There are avenues, and just like GitHub is one place, you may be actually setting up. You may go on a public dashboarding tool, let us say Tableau Public, and pull in the COVID data and show what your analysis is, what your thoughts are.
I'm actually going to go on YouTube and spend 2 minutes explaining the visualization that I came up with, right? That's another showcasing of portfolio as well.
Most important thing is you should be willing to show off and not thinking that is it worth it, because if you have doubts, work on it, and if you until you don't have doubts, and then show it off. That's the only way to kind of get seen and
and along the way, I think when people want to learn this in a structured way, one very important thing, at least I've noticed in coaching hundreds of people, and I'm sure you will agree, is you need that coaching and mentoring and guidance, right? Along the way when you're transition.
Many people
make sure that you get that.
Yeah, everything is available online, but unless you have the kind of rigor it takes, you need some kind of a construct to drive that rigor into you, and which is why people commit to some course or something which can make them drive it. As much as they are committed, they have a compulsion to do it. Otherwise, it just falls through the cracks.
Awesome, awesome. I think with that, I think we'll leave 5 minutes for Jayant to talk about the data science and business analytics program. But Amit, thank you so much. Truly appreciate your time on a Friday evening. I'll see you soon again, right?
Thank you so much, Satish,
Take
and
care.
everyone at IPL. Thank you, audience. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Jayant, over to you to take us through the program details. Jayant, can you hear us? You're on mute if you're speaking.
Thank you, Sai. Good evening, everyone. The School of Data Science at the Institute of Product Leadership offers multiple programs in data science. The programs cover data science and business analytics, artificial intelligence and machine learning, applied data science, and various other programs. The international certification in data science and business analytics offered by the Institute in partnership with University of Houston is a 5-month program. The program consists of 5 courses, and each course is delivered over a month with curated learning, which offered as a part of the self-learning for the learners, and has got weekly live sessions where the learners can interact with skill mentors and coaches, and the theoretical and lab sessions are covered through these live sessions. The program also offers unlimited one-on-one coaching to the learners to kind of engage with the coaches on a personal basis to get their doubts clarified, and have talk about any other career related questions or anything to do with the program. The program is designed to deliver these 10 outcomes. So the program covers all the aspects, right from business problem framing to models evaluation and drawing insights from the data which you analyze, and come up with your insights and interpretation of the data, and present those data with in a visual format with a story to the right stakeholders. So the program consists of 5 core courses. It starts with the data science foundations, where we cover the basic concepts of data science, and then move on to business problem framing, where you learn to sort of frame a problem, a business problem, as a data science problem, and then you get to learn data science techniques using which you kind of work on this whatever the data, and then the other courses which are covered are the predictive and prescriptive analytics, and data visualization and storytelling. So the institute also offers career assistance platform to help the learners in transitioning to a data science career. And we are offering a limited scholarship, Taylor scholarship. You are interested in knowing more about this, please scan the QR code. I will hold on for a minute. And if you are interested in talking to a counselor to know more about the program, please scan this QR code. With this, I hand it over to Madhumita. Madhumita, please take over.
Yeah, thank you, Jen. Thank you, Sai. And thank you, the other people over here. It was a really valuable session, and I'm sure the audience would have loved it, and it will help them in the career journey. Now, with this, I have data science is not the subject that you can get answers within an hour, and hence we have made various platforms available to address all the queries. You can book a 30-minute session with our faculty or reach out to us, reach out to our website for detailed information on the international certification on data science and business analytics. You can also email us and engage@ipl.edu.in. With this, I would just like to say thank you to the audience. Thank you to the audience for being a part of this. Thank you, everyone.